In this corner of the podcast, a buck 39. Boxing's biggest names, boxing's biggest stories, boxing's biggest fights, greatest memories and moments. All that's out the window on this show in a sense, as we really, the primary focus will be what's going to take place tonight on Netflix. Mike Tyson, Jake Paul. Let's call it an event. That's what it is. And we'll be joined by boxing trainer Tom Yankello, former two-time world champion at a $140, Regis Prograis, to actually break down what we might see if it's actually a fight. It's supposed to be. Boxing Hall of Fame commentator Jim Lampley then will be with us to add some historical perspective and some thoughts and ideas and try to rationalize what this might be. And Lee will have his take. Lee Groves, how you doing, Lee?
Doing well, and you?
And pretty good. And I'll sum it up at the end with my own Smitty-logue, if you will, my own monologue on this. I just came up with that. I like that. We were trying to figure out what the hell to call it. Smitty-logue works.
Yeah.
Before we get to any of that stuff, let's keep it real. There is some real boxing to talk about, and who better to talk about it than you? Go ahead.
Gee, thanks. Well, last Friday, ESPN Plus streamed a card from Norfolk, Virginia, in which the three Davis brothers, Keyshawn, Keon, and Kelvin, all won before their hometown fans. Keyshawn's second-round knockout over the grossly overweight Gustavo Lemos was particularly important because, one, he produced a spectacular knockout over a far heavier opponent, and two, because the win placed him one big step closer to a world title shot next year. On Saturday, there were three cards of note. The first was on DAZN, and there, Jaron Boots Ennis defeated mandatory challenger Karen Chukatsin to keep his belt at 147. WBC Super Flyweight champion Jesse Bam Rodriguez impressively stopped Pedro Guevara in 3. And former featherweight titleist Raymond Ford won a decisive 10-round unanimous decision over Orlando Gonzalez. Meanwhile, the main event of Saturday's Pro Box card saw former IBF 130-pound champion Jojo Diaz lose his third straight fight, this time by a 10-round split decision against the 22-6-1 Abraham Montoya. Could this be the end for Diaz? We'll see. And finally, the main event of a low-profile pay-per-view show saw former champ Subriel Matias return to the ring with a second-round stoppage over Gilberto Ramirez before his home fans in Puerto Rico. Now, Smitty, I know that there are two different approaches.
I'll jump in. I know where you're going. He made a good move by doing this. You know, you come off the loss to Liam Paro, and this is a great jump right back on the horse, get right back into the saddle in the squared circle, get a win. And if more fighters should do this, they used to always do this. It kind of mitigates the loss a little bit, gets some confidence going, and in this case, ends the year with a W. Good move by him.
Yeah, very good move by him. And before we launch into our preview of Paul versus Tyson, I'm going to preview a stat card which will take place tomorrow in Saudi Arabia. The show will be on DAZN as part of one subscription. That's a good thing. And it will feature 2 title unification matches and 3 fights that will have an impact on the world title picture. The main event is going to be between Gilberto Ramirez and Chris Billam-Smith, and that hopefully will unite the WBA and WBO cruiserweight titles. I'm picking Zerto on points. While it will be supported by a fight between WBO minimumweight champion Oscar Collazo and his WBA counterpart Thammanoon Niyomtrong, the longest reigning current champion in boxing, more than 8 years. But I'm picking Collazo on points. And as for the other 3, there's an intriguing 140-pound showdown between Jose Carlos Ramirez and Arnold Barboza Jr. I'm picking Ramirez to win that one. A potential show stealer between sluggers Oscar Duarte and Batir Akhmedov. I'm picking Duarte. And a very interesting lightweight battle between William Zepeda and Tevin Farmer. I'm picking Zepeda to win that one. And speaking of Saudi Arabia, it was announced on Monday that Turki Al-Sheikh now has 100% control of Ring Magazine. He announced that the print edition will return after 2 years away. that the editorial stance will be fully independent from Riyadh season, that an extravagant award ceremony will be staged each year, and that the ring ratings will be returned to a fully independent panel around the world. Now, I don't know how long Saudi Arabia will be involved in boxing, but it looks like its commitment to the sport has gotten even deeper. What do you think?
Time will tell. That certainly is a big commitment. As far as Ring the magazine, the actual magazine, which is so legendary, and I have so many, even some over there in the corner of my office, I don't think that'll work anymore, given where we're at, with the newspapers and reading. But it's worth a try. But as far as keeping Ring alive and making Ring even better with great writers like yourself, and Dougie Fisher's done a great job with it, I'm all for more power to that. And before we go to the break, I'm going to take a little break and talk about a great alternative to caps and crowns and bridges in your mouth. I have a plethora of all of that stuff going on, but it's all changing thanks to Dr. Nam Phan. Now, he specializes, his expertise is in full mouth cosmetic veneers. He does crowns, but it's mainly dental implants that he specializes in. He's consistently helped his patients achieve their ideal smiles by offering a range, and this is really important, a range of affordable financial options tailored to their needs. There's no doubt that implants is the way to go. If you're having issues, and you, especially for quality of life and everything, not just your smile, but your jaw, chewing, everything, talking. Implants is the way to go, but people back off because of, price. And that's where Dr. Nam Phan can help you. Again, he's a dental implant expert. Now in Vegas, he's at 2121 East Flamingo Road. He actually has a couple of locations here, but a good way to get him, because he's also, he works in New York, in California, in Jersey. Just call this number, 702-637-9168. That's 702-637-9168. Again, flexible financial options. Actually, if he can't help you with your implants, probably nobody can, Dr. Nam Phan. Now we're going to get some help with trying to break down this damn fiasco of Tyson and Paul from the world-class boxing gym. Up next, Tommy Yankello will be back.
I got two options. Option one, I can accept defeat. Option two, I can get up. I can get tougher. I can get faster. I can get stronger. And then I go get mine. I made my choice. Have you made yours?
Back on In This Corner of the podcast, a $139. A little bit later on, we'll hear from former two-time champ at a $140, Regis Prograis, and Hall of Fame broadcaster Jim Lampley. Right now, we are joined by, from that world-class boxing gym, Tommy Yankello joins us. How you doing, Tommy?
Good. How are you guys?
Pretty good. Well, you don't really want to know what I feel about this fight, but at the end of the show, everybody will know as I toss it to Lee Groves.
Okay.
All right, so Jake Paul will be facing by far the most experienced and accomplished boxer of his career, even if that boxer is 58 years old and hasn't had an official fight in almost 20 years. If you had been Jake Paul's chief second, put yourself in his place, how would you have prepared him for this kind of assignment?
Well, last time Mike was in the ring, I was in charge of the assignment, so I could tell you that, it's you always got to take a page out of what Evander Holyfield did. Buster Douglas, even Francois Botha before he got caught. These guys, they tied Mike up and slowed the pace down, walked him back, used the jab and definitely got to slow the pace down and tie him up and walk him back, and you put your head in there and all that good stuff that Holyfield did to him, and really, discouraged him and everything else from being aggressive. You got to stop him from being aggressive. He only knows one way. He's not going to box. He's not going to move around. So you have to slow the pace down. And, what we did, we trained hard for that fight, so I mean, like people, I always thought it was supposed to be an exhibition, but, you're
referring to Jones and Tyson.
Yes, we trained. Yes. We had real sparring partners. We had young guys. Actually, the kid, Dakari Scott, who's they call Mac Truck, is sparred with Jake in his camp. It was the same guy we had spar with us for when we fought Roy. So I mean, we fought Mike. So I mean, they have legitimate guys that Jake is sparring with, and I would think vice versa. I haven't got who Mike's been sparring with, but I mean, we trained. We had sparred guys that were right now. Brandon Glanton, he's top 15 in the world. So we were actually sparring with real guys, and these guys were preparing. I mean, Roy trained hard as you could, like it was a championship fight, and so did Mike. And when we got in there to the arena that night, some of the officials came in there and told us, like, we don't want no one getting hurt. We need you guys to just work with each other. We don't want this, And Roy looks at me and looks at them. And he says, he only knows one way. He says, I can't let it go easy, and then he's going to hurt me. So Roy's like, I don't know what I'm going to do. So we went out there, and he said Mike hit him, and he said he felt like he got kicked by a horse. So he had to turn it up. He had to grab. He had to do all the things that we prepared like it was a real fight. So, that fight, that thing there, the cameras were kind of funny. It was during COVID, and it was not a good tell. There was a lot of action that a lot of people missed in that fight. That was they were it was pretty darn hard, 80-90% contest there. I mean, there was times where like I said, they were trying to give each other breaks and do things where they weren't going to hurt each other. But Mike was throwing hard, and Roy had to throw back hard many times in that fight. So that was it was more serious than people, it was more real than people realized. So this one being a sanctioned fight, I don't think it's a show. I think it's going to be actually, like I said, I think Mike only goes one way. I think he's going to go hard. He went hard against Roy, and Roy used to come back to the corner and tell me, he says, he's hitting hard, man. He told me he's hitting hard. I got to go. So.
Right. So what do you make of Jake Paul adding so much bulk to his physique?
Well, I haven't been aware of that. He said he's become a lot heavier this
Pretty
fight?
Big.
Oh, yeah, yeah. He looks like he's 220 or something to me, or maybe more, but definitely looks like he's 220 to me, although he does so many phony bullshit things with his videos. But he looks, what, Lee, about 220, you think?
He looks about 220. He's big, much bigger in the upper body. Maybe he's trying to do what you recommended him to do, push and shove and all that stuff.
Exactly. He's going to try to add some weight, so he's got some good. He feels like he's going to have better leverage in there. I'm one that's not a believer of that, because I believe positioning is leverage. If you got the right position, just because you got weight, if a man's stronger and a man is stronger, sometimes the weight will slow you down, and then the guy can get better position on you. So it's about being agile and having position to get leverage a lot of times. But I would believe that would be his philosophy, if that's why he put on the weight. Because I looked at his box rec, and there's nothing on BoxRec that says has ever been over 200 pounds. So this would be the first time that he's over. If he's 220, he's 20 pounds above that. But that would be the theory that I think that they're going with, or the philosophy, by putting on the weight. That's what I would think it would have to be.
Now let's suppose you're in Mike Tyson's corner. What challenges would you have faced as a trainer because of his age and his layoff? How do you work on that?
Well, Mike was great at what he did. He had a very unique style. So you just have to try to make him be the best version of himself, and using that jab and really, not just walking in without a jab. When Mike was at his best, Mike had a great jab. So I think he's going to have to, just going to have to be the best version of himself at this age. I know he trained. I had heard when he was training for Roy, he trained like it was a championship fight, and everything that I've seen, he's been training extremely hard. He's on everything possible to push the clock back, and I think he's taking it serious. I mean, everybody that I know through the boxing will say this is real, because he said he doesn't want to ruin lose to a YouTube guy and ruin his legacy on that end. So he is training like a wild man. So I think he's going to be the best version he can be at this age. You
Yeah.
know,
How do you see this fight? It's assuming this is going to be a real fight and not a business transaction or something to milk a possible rematch. How do you see this fight playing out?
well, you just gave me a little bit of a tip of Jake putting on the weight, and I don't think that that's a great plus for him. I think he's going to be as strong as he's going to be. I think he needed to be a little bit more agile and be more like I said, like Roy, to be able to sneak out of some of the little holes when you get trapped, and being able to grab, being able to grab and have an extra weight on you is is not always the same thing. That kind of strength is sometimes two different kinds of strength. It can help you if you know how to use it. So if he doesn't know how to use it, it's not going to help him. I should say that weight doesn't make a difference, and I think it might slow his feet down. So he might not have the same movement that that he could use and have little like Holyfield was light. Holyfield was never heavy to beat Mike Tyson. He didn't, you know what I mean? He didn't try to put on extra weight to fight Mike. He outmaneuvered Mike and outpositioned Mike. So I don't think that helps him. So how I think it's going to play out is I just think that the 14-ounce gloves on, 2-minute rounds. I'm going to take a hunch that this is going to pretty much end up like Roy was against Mike. I think it's going to end up in a draw. I think it's going to end up at the point. It's going to be very competitive, very close. I don't think Mike is going to probably, with his age, and he's probably not going to be able to land his patent, hard shots that he's able to knock people out in his prime. And I don't think he's going to catch Jake flush enough. He's going to put the pressure on. He's going to try like heck. And I think he's still, one thing that I can tell you, when Roy fought Mike, he said, I couldn't believe how incredibly hard he still was to hit. And he was moving his head very, very well. And he said he was very, very hard to hit. Of course, Roy was at an older age and Jake is a lot younger, but we are still talking about a guy that he's got 9 years into the game. He's worked his butt off to get where he is, Jake Paul. Like, people think he's just a YouTuber, doesn't train. He trains but at the same time, he's not somebody like Roy or Mike who was born to do this and was an all-time great. So I think that brings him down a little bit. And I just think that even though the age gap is there, I think the 2-minute rounds actually saves Mike Tyson, believe it or not.
Yes.
Because of his age.
Mike never had stamina beyond 7 or 8. I mean, he could go 12 rounds, but Mike never, his power was done and plateaued at about round 7 or 8, even when he was in his prime.
Right. So you think just like I do. I think the 2-minute rounds actually helps him.
Yeah.
So with that being said, that it's a 2-minute round, it's 14-ounce gloves, might save his older man in being an older guy, getting hit with a less of a glove. Jake Paul can hit, but I think at the same time, Jake Paul is going to have, because he's still in there with an all-time great, and the last thing to go is power. I think he's going to be a little leery to just throw anything at Mike, which is going to stop him from knocking Mike out. I won't be surprised if either guy gets hurt. I won't be surprised if somebody would get knocked out. But if I had to really pick, I'm going to say that if I had to lean somewhere, believe it or not, and even though, like I said, I think the 2-minute rounds helps, and I think just the pressure that Mike can still put on you. He might win the judges over and squeak out a close decision. But if I have to bet on it, I'm gonna go on to what's the under over for a draw. I'm gonna pick a draw.
Yeah, and again, cosmetically, guys like Roy and Mike in the ring will look better because they both really, really know their way around the ring. And I think this one could look really sloppy and ugly given Jake, who he is, and where Mike's at nearly 60 years of age. Before we let you go, you got the last time. Hey, we need to give hats off to Tommy. He had better Biev, right, Lee? I had Bivol.
Yes.
You had Bivol. That guy there had better Biev, and he was pretty convinced that he would win. And by the way, I don't know how Tommy's so honest about it. I still thought Bivol won, by the way. But it could have gone either way. It certainly, though, was one hell of a fight. Would you like to see quick thoughts on that fight? Because you got it right.
Well, I wouldn't have been mad if it was a draw. I kind of just felt like there was a lot of swing rounds that could have went either way.
Yes.
I kind of when the fight was over, I told my son, my little boy was here, 10 years old. I said, I think it's going to be a draw. So, but when it went to better be, I couldn't complain about that either, because if it went to Bivol, I wouldn't have complained about that either. So I thought it was very, very close. I think, I mean, that's what I think. But I mean, Better Beef, you can definitely make a case for both guys. And you make a case for Better Beef because he was aggressive and he dictated the pace of the fight. Bivol was throwing some really good combinations and stuff. But, in those later rounds, Better Beef was, if that was a 15-round fight, I believe he was in trouble. Even a 13-round fight. I think Bivol was starting to be at the end of his.
Yeah. It looked that way. It did look that way. Hey, and for boxing fans, fighters, amateur fighters, current fighters, even world champions, man, if you want a great trainer, hire Tommy. If you want to watch great content, follow Tommy Yankello and the World Class Boxing Gym. You will not see a better pugilistic tutorial than Tommy Yankello and the World Class Boxing Gym. Thank you, Tommy.
Thank you,
Tommy.
Appreciate
All right.
you. Thanks,
Back
Lee.
with Regis Prograis. A little bit later on, Jim Lampley. We'll be back.
I got two options. Option one, I can accept defeat. Option two, I can get up. I can get tougher. I can get faster. I can get stronger. And then I go get mine. I made my choice. Have you made yours?
Back in this corner of the podcast, $139, and joined by one of our favorite and best contributors to the program, especially when we're breaking down a fight, or in this case, I don't know what we're breaking down, an event with Tyson and Paul. The former two-time 40-pound world champion Rougarou, Regis Prograis, joins us. How you doing?
Man, I'm all good, man. I just woke up from a nap just to talk to y'all.
Well, that's good. We're not going to keep you long, so maybe you'll be able to go back. First off, the Catterall fight a few weeks ago, very competitive. You dropped him. He dropped you a few times en route to a decision. You've had a couple of weeks to digest it. Your comments on the fight?
First off, it was, I think it was a great fight. It was a great fight for just me, for him, for boxing. Honestly, brother, I was winning easily. I was winning really easy. I was boxing them real easy. I twisted my ankle, if just to really be in all honesty, I just twisted my ankle and that was it. Once I twisted my ankle, I twisted my ankle about 3 times. And at first it was like walkable. Then I took my shoe off and it ballooned up and it was like real slow. It was real fat. But I mean, I just felt like I was outboxing really, really easy. The first 6 or 7 rounds, I dropped them and I was outboxing them easy. And then I don't know what happened. I just twisted my ankle. I don't know when the first time I twisted, but I don't know. I know when we both fell to the ground. I know that. And but I don't know when was the first time. But I twisted my ankle and that was it. After I twisted my ankle, then it was like I was just fighting off adrenaline.
Well,
and
I've had that injury in
that
football. I've had that injury in high school football and in boxing. And yeah, when you especially as a fighter pivoting and maneuvering, still was a very competitive fight. Obviously, you could do whatever you want. You can fight on. My advice to you, just because I consider you a friend and I think you've got such an upside on other fighters in LAB, life after boxing, my thing would be sail off into the sunset and do all kinds of great stuff beyond boxing, but it's your choice. What do you want to do?
I still want to be a 3-time champion. That's still in the back of my head. I still want to fight. I still think I know I can be a 3-time champion. Like I said, the 2 fights before that, my confidence wasn't really high. I had to build my confidence back. With the Zorilla fight, I lost confidence because, it wasn't a good fight. With Devin Haney fight, I definitely lost confidence. But with this fight, I'm not going to lie, man, my confidence is skyrocketing. My confidence is very, very high right now. And the simple reason, because I was outboxing really easy. And just really, like I said, until I just twisted my ankle. I feel like if I wouldn't have twisted my ankle, it would have been an easy night for me,
Well,
So I still want to do that. I still want to be a champion again. And and I still have this fight left in me. So if I don't be a boxer, maybe go to bare knuckle boxing. But right
No,
now,
no, no, no,
no,
no,
no,
no,
no,
Please
no.
no.
no. Please
That
no.
no, no, no. I will
It's
come to
easy. It's
I will
easy
come to
paycheck.
Houston and I'll no, you're just too no, don't do that. You'll get me all riled up here. You'll have my blood pressure exploding. No.
We
I
don't
had the
want that.
ability to
Smitty, that's easy paycheck.
I
Easy
know,
money.
but it's also you've got a beautiful family. You're almost as pretty as Smitty. No, no, no,
Almost.
no. But we're going to switch gears. And by the way, I'll just say this, and you don't even have to answer me
All
because I
right.
consider you a friend. If you do come back and fight don't go to some big money fight. Just take a fight for you to see where you're at. And that would be that's all I'm going to
That's
say.
that's exactly what I'm doing. That's the plan. That's
Yeah.
exactly the plan. What you just said, that's exactly what we're doing. That's exactly the plan. I don't have to go. I don't have to go in the biggest fights no more. Like right now, go to something smaller and see where I'm at, and test my ankle and all that type of stuff, and then build myself back up. That's what I'm gonna do right now. Go
Remember
ahead, build
something.
myself back.
Remember
Yeah,
something. You're always going to be called champ. You've already done something twice that
yeah,
so few people in the world ever even
yeah.
have a shot to do as I flip to Lee Groves.
All right.
Okay, so let's turn to the event at hand, the Jake
Uh-huh.
Paul-Mike Tyson, whatever it is. How
Okay.
did you react when you first heard that the fight was made?
Man, I think it's a circus, but everybody want to watch it. That's the thing. Listen, like how is Jake Paul is 30 and he's fighting a 58-year-old man. Like I don't understand, but everybody wants to watch it. I'm not gonna lie. Listen, I'm going to Colombia Saturday and I was going Friday and I changed my flight because I want to watch the fight. I'm not gonna lie. Like I really I really want to watch this fight. And it's just like I don't know what's gonna happen. We don't know what we really I think in this fight, I don't know how y'all feel about it, but do you actually know what's gonna happen? What do you expect to happen? I really don't know. I don't know because Jake Paul, we know is not that good of a fighter. And Mike Tyson is 58 years old. His last fight was Danny McBride. That was 20 years ago, something like that. But he still didn't look good. But at the same time, Jake Paul is really not that good of a fighter. So what is really going to happen? I know that Jake Paul is supposed to win, but we really don't know. What if Mike Tyson lands on Jake Paul and knocks him out? Like I don't know what's going to happen in this fight. That's it. I mean, we're not talking about Mike Tyson coming back and fight Usyk or Fury or Wilder. We talking about him fighting Jake Paul. So I really don't know what's gonna happen in this fight. I'm lost.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just want to see it though. I do want to see it though, no matter what.
Well, there you go. That's why it's on Netflix. That's why it's getting a lot of attention. People want to see it. But
Yeah.
you're 35 years old and Mike is 58. But as an athlete, what physical obstacles do you think Mike had to address as an older man? What are the easiest things to overcome and what are the harder things to overcome?
I think he got a lot of things to overcome. Being 58 is, I mean, that's insane. That's what I'm saying. I just don't know, Mike. I mean, the thing is in boxing, in just sports period, you keep your power. You keep your power to the end. I saw George Foreman hitting the heavy bag not too long ago. He still had a lot of power, but
Yeah.
you don't have nothing else. Reflexes, eyesight, speed, all that stuff is gone. That thing is like with him. He does look good hitting the pads and stuff like that, but I know like he's gonna get tired. That's why I really want to see what's gonna happen with this fight because it's still a 58-year fight. Now, he did fight Roy. It's not like a blind fight. He did fight Roy Jones, and in that fight, he didn't look like Mike Tyson, but he still looked like he was better Jake Paul.
Right.
So I know that he has a lot. Man, I know it's a lot to overcome. I know it's a lot of stuff for him to just being 58. I don't know, man. It's gonna be a wild ride. That's for sure.
Very, very much so. If you had Tyson's ear, so to speak, how would you tell him to fight?
I'll say be Mike Tyson. That's it. That's the only thing I'll say. I'll say just be Mike Tyson. Fight like
Go
himself.
at him.
Just go at him. Definitely try to go at him. And I think the whole world knows that. Like Mike Tyson is just going to come out and go at him, and Jake Paul is just probably going to try to get on his back foot and run around the ring until Mike Tyson gets tired. Because I feel like Tyson is going to get tired. 58 years old, you don't have the same nothing. So the only thing you do have is power. That's the only thing you do have, and I'm pretty sure Jake and everybody that knows this fight, that's what's gonna happen. You know, you only have one thing. You have the power. That's it. You don't have speed no more. You don't have reflexes. You really don't have endurance. So the only thing he does have is the power. So I'll just say, man, listen, be Mike Tyson until you can't be Mike Tyson no more. And I feel like it's only gonna be a very, very short time that he can be Mike Tyson.
So
It'll
it
probably be
sounds
like 1
so
minute.
it sounds like what you're saying. If you were talking to Paul, if you were working with Jake, you'd probably say, watch your own damn ear, but then stay away, move around, tire him out, and take him into deeper water where a 58-year-old guy will run out of gas. Would that be your advice to Paul?
Exactly, yes. I'll say just stay around. The whole first round, just run around the ring. Stay away. Put your jab out a little bit. Stay around. If he gets a little close, just grab him up. Tie him up. That's all. That's the first thing I'll say. Wrestle with him a little bit. Make it a little wrestling match. Make it ugly. And then after the second round, then you can start, putting some stuff together. But like I said, he's 58, so it's only so much he can do. That's just how I feel.
Well, you've been pretty successful on this program, breaking down and even predicting real fights. Putting you on the spot, what do you think we will end up seeing with this thing? How do you think it'll be a disappointing outcome for the public?
I do think it's gonna be a disappointing outcome. I think it's the only thing I don't want is to Mike Tyson to get knocked out. That's the only thing I don't want. That Mike Tyson is my favorite fight. Between Mike Tyson and Roberto Duran, that's my two favorite fights of all time. And for him to be involved in this is definitely, I don't like it, but I understand because it's a big spectacle. I do understand about it. But I definitely don't like it because you have to realize, man, like all the YouTubers, all the young generation right now, like a lot of the people that watch Mike Tyson coming up, a lot of those people, I'm not gonna say dead, but some of those people are dead. So the people that saw the youngest heavyweight champion, that's not the people that's actually watching this fight. It's the kids coming up, they watching this fight. And if Jake Paul beats Mike Tyson or beats him bad, knocks out Mike Tyson, they're gonna say that Jake Paul beat Mike. They gonna really think that Jake Paul really beat Mike Tyson, which was the youngest heavyweight champion ever. They gonna see he beat them, which that person wasn't around for 30 years, even longer than that, so it's like
great point.
That's the only that's the only disappointing part about it. Be all the kids they're gonna say. I mean, even my son.
It's a delusion. It's a delusion. Well, listen, before we let you go, and we're gonna roll tape on this. I think I sent it of you at the International Boxing Hall of Fame. I know you were just there. They had a great time with you. And as we roll this tape here, what were your experiences in Canastota there? It looked like you had a great time.
Yeah, of course. That was, I've been there before, but that was I went there and just, I mean, I could have stayed there all day, to be honest. Just reading all the stuff about all the fighters, the promoters, just everybody that been in boxing. Christian Martin was there. We talked for a little while. Just being there, and that's the reason I really want to be a 3-time champion. I think if I never went there, I think I probably was like, you know what, I don't think I need a box no more. But going there, it's like, I gotta be a 3-time champion because I really want to be in this. I want my stuff hanging up. I want the young fighters talking about me one day, just like I'm reading, I'm talking about them. So I could have been there all day looking and reading and watching boxing and just, hearing the stories. I could have been there all day.
Yeah.
Luckily, I had my wife with me, so she was ready to go. But if it wasn't, I would probably still been there right now reading about all that stuff and just looking at it because, I'm a historian. I love the boxing.
Well, it would be great to have you there in June. When I'm hosting it, and we'll get you. The fans would love to hear your conversation. We're going to have you back on before Fury
Usyk
and Usyk. Yeah, 2 coming up. And again, whatever you decide to do is your own decision. But no bare knuckle. Do not do it, or I'm coming after you if you do that. Anyway, he is Regis Prograis, Rougarou. We woke him up for this. We'll see what happens if this fight doesn't put him to sleep with Tyson and Paul. Thanks, buddy. Great to see you.
All right, man. No problem. Thank y'all. Yeah.
All right. We'll come back with 2 more segments right after this.
I got 2 options. Option 1, I can accept defeat. Option 2, I can get up. I can get tougher. I can get faster. I can get stronger. And then I go get mine. I made my choice. Have you made yours?
structure of the place is such that the crowd takes a while to become aware of the fighter exiting the dressing room and coming in. And there you see a shot from behind the young champion as he and his entourage make their way. A much smaller group than the one which brought Spinks into the arena. And of course, as always, no shirt, no robe, no accoutrement. Tyson not afraid, as we expected, and Spinks ready to mix it up with him. Tyson along the ropes doing damage.
Michael Spinks has to keep moving because every shot.
Uppercut landed inside, and Spinks went down. It was the left uppercut.
I was surprised there was a body shot that put him to the canvas.
And that is the first time Michael Spinks has ever been down in a professional fight.
And he's down again and in serious trouble. A right hand right on the chin.
6, 7, 8. He's not going to make it. It's all over.
Welcome back in this corner of the podcast, a buck 39. Earlier, we heard from trainer Tom Yankello, former two-time champion Regis Prograis, breaking down the fight, if you will. Our very special guest now is not here to break down the fight. He is here to put some cogent perspective as to this event. And I can't think of anybody more qualified to do that than International Boxing Hall of Fame commentator Jim Lampley. How you doing, Jim?
I'm okay, Smitty. How are you guys?
We are pretty good. Again, as I said there in the opening, with all of your experience and knowledge and historical perspective as to not only boxing, but to Iron Mike Tyson. Jim, when did he first come on your radar?
Well, I saw the videotape that was edited for local news shows, local sports directors by Jimmy Jacobs when Jacobs and Caton were managing the young Mike Tyson and trying to build a unique heavyweight championship-oriented career. And Tyson was fighting in the series of introductory fights that were getting his feet wet as a professional fighter. And he was knocking people out in a minute and a half. A series of opponents carefully and brilliantly chosen by Jimmy Jacobs, who was the boxing half of the management team. Caton was the marketing half. And Jimmy was a matchmaker extraordinaire. He knew exactly the kind of fighters who could maybe momentarily look competitive against Tyson and then would go away relatively quickly. And there was a spectacular series of first round knockouts, a minute 10, a minute 40, et cetera, that they cut into what amounted to a highlight reel. It was about 2 minutes long. It was sent to every local sports director in the country. In those days, we still had local news. The local news shows had 3.5 or 4 minutes at 11 o'clock at night for the sports director. If the market had nothing going on in sports, the sports director was always up against it, trying to find 3.5 or 4 minutes worth of material. And the highlight reel that Jacobs sent out regarding Mike in 1986 and 87 was brilliant for the purpose, because it was a gift to every local sports director in the country and in all sorts of markets all across the country, most of them not boxing oriented. Here was this, piece of video that you could use to fill up the sports segment at 11 o'clock at night, and it was a cartoon. It was Mike knocking people for cartwheels and, getting rid of them in a minute or less, et cetera, and it made him look like an unbeatable Godzilla figure. So before Mike ever appeared in a major national boxing telecast, he was known to a lot of people around the country because of this local television sports highlight reel. Then, summer of 1987, new manager arrived at ABC Sports. I had done everything else at ABC Sports in terms of content. I had never done anything relative to boxing because boxing was Cosell's province and it was entirely set aside for Cosell. Therefore, I had not had anything to do with boxing on the air at ABC Sports. The new division president, who arrived in early 1987, wanted very badly to get rid of me, wanted to force me to walk away from my contract. And he decided I was such a fresh-faced, preppy-looking, all-American kid that I would be completely allergic to boxing and boxing would be allergic to me. And he assigned me to cover boxing. He didn't want Cosell to be happy either. He wanted to make both of us unhappy. This was a good way to do it. And the very first fight that I was sent to cover was Mike Tyson versus Jesse Ferguson in Glens Falls, New York. Network had signed, excuse me, a get-acquainted look-see contract with Tyson. And I was sent to Glens Falls, New York to do what amounted to his 17th or 18th professional fight against Jesse Ferguson. And that was a Saturday afternoon on ABC's Wide World of Sports. That was a particularly picturesque knockout. He exploded Ferguson's nose with an uppercut in an early round, the third or fourth. By the time the fight was stopped, there was blood all over the ring. And anybody who didn't know who Mike Tyson was before that moment had a new perspective and a new picture to look at. So that's when I started covering Mike's fights. And we did another fight or two in 88. I moved to HBO almost immediately, called the Tony Tubbs fight in Tokyo. And about a year later, we were back in Tokyo for James Buster Douglas.
Yeah, and in between, I think you called Spinks, Bruno, Williams, Douglas, and Till. I know there was the Spinks fight, the Bruno fight, the Williams fight, and then you did the Tillman and Stewart fight before he moved over to Showtime. We're chatting with International Boxing Hall of Fame commentator, broadcaster. He's now with PPV.com, Jim Lampley, as I flip to Lee Groves.
Well, let's switch to the event at hand, the Jake Paul-Mike Tyson event. How did you react when you first heard about it?
Well, it's more than 35 years since I covered Mike on ABC Sports in 1987. And, you know, I've seen everything. Everybody in boxing, by the way, who is in my generation, including you guys who are much younger, but you've seen everything. We've seen everything. So it's not surprising when an old fighter, even one who's been retired for a decade or two, feels the need to make some money, and you know, an opportunity can be created for him to make money. And this is a create, make money Mike Tyson type event. So I'm not surprised by anything these days. I wasn't surprised to hear that Mike was in the market, and this seems like, you know, a logical opponent for this kind of event.
Yeah, well, you know, there's a lot of buzz surrounding this match, and I think that buzz confirms that, at least in the United States, that events such as this have gained a strong foothold. If not,
well, Tyson's unique. Okay, I mean, yes, events like this have gained a foothold, but this is about Mike Tyson, and nobody else has that profile. Nobody else has that persona. Nobody else has that myth surrounding him. So you can make events like this, but the only one you can make that will get this much attention in this period of time is Mike Tyson.
And it's very noticeable that Mike Tyson still has that kind of foothold on the public. You would think that, you know, big-time boxing events like Bivol Beterbiev, Crawford Spence, some of the other supposed mega events would have more of a foothold or an impact on the American public. Why is boxing in such a place right now in the United States?
Well, Mike is beyond being a boxing figure. Okay, Mike is an internet cult figure, an entertainment world figure. He's been in movies. He's appeared in a variety of different contexts. Mike's persona went beyond the boundaries of boxing a long, long time ago. It began with that video highlight reel that Jimmy Jacobs spent to all the local sports directors. He was a unique figure after that had been around the circuit a couple of times. So you couldn't do this with any other boxer. And I want to say you couldn't do it with any other public figure in exactly this way. Mm-hmm. Again, the unique is one of the most overused terms in the culture. I try to stay away from it. Mike is unique.
Yes, he is. You've known him a very long time. Considering he's 58 years old, do you have concerns about what might happen to him?
Well, I think he knows how to protect himself, even at age 58. I am still in a position where I would probably be more worried about Jake Paul than about Mike, even with Mike being 58 years old. But I rather suspect that given that the real underpinning of the event is money, that we're probably not going to see hellacious combat. We're more likely to see some kind of freak show ending than a standard walk-in, box for a few rounds and knock a guy out kind of ending. And a lot of people are going to be disappointed, but that's just the nature of this kind of beast. And it's also, to a certain degree, it's my level of cynicism about any boxing that isn't boxing. And by that, I mean any boxing that does not involve two highly well-trained athletes in athletic condition fighting at somewhere near the peak of their careers, carefully supported by smart trainers and cut men in the corner, etc. Anything that doesn't observe all of those particulars, to me, isn't boxing. Because boxing evolved in a particular way to cover itself on certain elements, and part of it is to avoid the kinds of injuries that will make governing authorities or state governments or the federal government or anybody say, you know what, enough of this, we're going to get rid of it. Boxing works to avoid that kind of outcome. And, you know, there will be measures in place Saturday night to make certain that neither Mike nor Jake are going to kill each other.
Yeah. You know, the main event notwithstanding, the undercard's pretty good. You have two future Hall of Famers in Katie Taylor and Amanda Serrano. They'll fight a rematch for an undisputed championship. Mario Barrios will defend his welterweight belt against an all-action challenger, Abel Ramos. And there's a bright prospect in Bruce Carrington. He's going to be featured on the card. Do you think that this live audience and the audience that will tune into Netflix, do you think they will give these fighters the proper attention? Or do you think that they'll be ignored and they'll just wait until the main event?
No, I don't know who's producing the telecast at this point, and I don't know how conscientious they want to be about servicing what is at least in part a boxing audience. And I say in part a boxing audience because it's the nature of an event like this that it's going to draw a lot of people who are not really boxing fans per se. Yes, the fighters you mentioned are legit, and they are good fighters. All of that, Katie Taylor and Amanda Serrano in particular, creates a permission structure for real boxing fans like you and me to make the buy, sit and watch the event. And, you know, if someone ridicules you and says, oh, you got sucked into the gimmick event, even despite your boxing sophistication. Well, wait a minute. I had to watch the card because Katie Taylor was fighting Amanda Serrano. And there were some other meaningful fighters on the card. So you get permission, Smitty. You get permission, Lee. I get permission if I want it as the result of those legitimate boxing events which are on the card. Tyson versus Jake Paul is not a legitimate boxing event. That's a horse of a different color. And of course, the vast majority of the audience will be tuning in to see that.
Yeah. Before you go to your final question, Lee, and Lee, you've heard my monologue, so you know that I'm shutting up because Jim's would be a perfect segue into my monologue. But I will say, how in the hell did they even get this to be sanctioned as a prize fight? Obviously, they went to Texas. I don't know if Ted Cruz is the commissioner there. I don't know what the hell goes on in Texas. But, Jim, how could 2-minute rounds, 14-ounce gloves, a 58-year-old guy, no drug testing, to me, that in and of itself puts a taint and a tarnish on the sport. Your thoughts?
I'm pulling up a picture for you here. See that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, that's only one of them. All right, and we're talking about a very large number of them Saturday night, but that's the only answer to your question.
There you go.
And we all know that there are real governing jurisdictions and authorities who are looking out for the sport of boxing in boxing, and there are others which are just band-aids to cover up whatever kind of commerce is going to take place. New York is one kind of boxing jurisdiction. California is one kind of boxing jurisdiction. New Jersey is one kind of boxing jurisdiction. Even Florida and a couple of other states have some legitimate governing structures in place. Texas is not one of those places. And it's not strikingly unusual that an event like this would take place in the Lone Star State.
Lee?
Yeah. Well, final question. Generally speaking, how do you see Paul versus Tyson playing out? Is this going to be a business transaction? Is this going to be a real fight? Are we going to get a conventional ending or an unconventional ending? What do you think?
All of the above.
Okay.
I think we'll see traces of every single thing you mentioned before this is over with. It could go a minute or it could go 10 rounds. I think it's highly unpredictable because I don't think we know enough.
8 rounds.
Is that what you? Oh, excuse me, 8 rounds. That's right. Yeah, I think it's highly unpredictable because we don't know who Tyson is at age 58, and we don't know enough about whether Jake Paul has the wherewithal and the background to stand in against Mike Tyson when he knows who Tyson has been through the previous portions of his career, particularly back when he was a legitimate boxer training as a legitimate boxer with legitimate skills.
Well,
that's
when
not
will
now.
we?
That was then.
Yeah, when will we see and hear Jim Lampley back with PPV.com calling and talking about and describing legitimate, real pugilism? When will we see you again?
We are in California for February 2. What is that fight? David Benavidez. We're doing the David Benavidez card. Yeah, on February 1 or February 2. So that's the return of PPV.com. And again, just for anybody who's confused, I don't talk on PPV.com. Right. I chat.
Yes.
So it's it's all a shared.
But you do some wonderful interviews. That they post.
I do things that I am doing to promote the enterprise and try to get people to understand and get interested in what PPV.com is. Obviously, when I'm doing 30 interviews and you see me in the media room 2 days before the fight, I'm trying to boost the image of PPV.com and get people to subscribe to the chat, which is a lot of fun because you're chatting with me, Lance Pugmire, Chris Algieri, Dan Canobio of the CompuBox family, and we're all trading our observations about what we're watching in the fight, and you get to trade with us if you sign up for PPV.com, which I understand you do by clicking a little box on the screen.
Yeah. Well, they're lucky to have you, and we're grateful to have you on here. I look forward. I don't know when I'm going to see you again. I I don't know whether I'll see you in Canastota in June if you want to hang out with Smitty and the gang in boxing's title town. But it's always great to have you on the program.
It's a very strong chance that I will be coming to Canastota again in June. So if I do, I'll look forward to seeing you there. Or if you guys happen to be at the Benavides card in California, I'll see you there. Excuse me. In Las Vegas. It's not in California. It's in Las Vegas.
Well,
I have to remember that.
That's about 15 minutes from my crib here.
There you go.
Anyway, thanks for joining us. Stay healthy. And if I don't talk to you by then, happy holidays, Jim.
And the same to you guys. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And we'll be back.
I got two options. Option one, I can accept defeat. Option two, I can get up. I can get tougher. I can get faster. I can get stronger. And then I go get mine. I made my choice. Have you made yours?
Back in this corner of the podcast, Buck 69, our penultimate segment. That means for those of you who are not a Smitty thesaurus or a Grove dictionary, that means that this is the segment right before the final segment, ladies and gentlemen, the penultimate segment. I'm wasting time, and we don't have a lot of time. Lee, you're up, baby. What do you got to say?
Well, before we go forward, I understand that you were making some phone calls to the Texas Commission to get some more information about the parameters of this thing. What'd you find out?
And I apologize to our fans. I should have done this months ago, but frankly, my dear, I knew whatever I would come up with wouldn't matter much. But I got in touch with the Texas Department of Licensing and Regulation. They're in Austin, Texas. I spoke to about 3 or 4 different people. And finally, the final call I got, and they did return all my calls and everything, was that at first they were approached by the promoters for this to be an exhibition, which is why they came up with 2-minute rounds, 8 rounds, 14-ounce gloves. And then somewhere along the line, it was shifted to be a professional bout. I asked who made that decision. The final person that called me told me it was not her. It was others. I couldn't find out who those others were, and I didn't press it and push it because it's going to happen no matter what. And God forbid if Smitty causes this bout to not take place, I'd have quadrillions of net flickers outside my door flicking away trying to mess with me, and including my pal Mike Tyson, who's not going to be happy with me anyway. But I think what we found out is what Jim Lampley alluded to earlier. Money talks. And I don't know how it ended up, but forget all of that. What's most important is what do you have to say about it?
Well, before I get into my prediction, I want to bring up a subject that I felt pretty strongly about for a while. For the last several years, boxing has operated between 2 different worlds. One that I call big time boxing, and the other one that I call big top boxing. All the fights that I talked about in the first segment illustrates the world of big time boxing. Terrific matches between worthy athletes, but it's disheartening to me as a 50-year boxing fan that the one big top fight, Jake Paul. Yeah,
go ahead.
It is disheartening that this is the fight that's garnering all the attention here in the States. To illustrate the point further, several of the undercard fights for Paul versus Tyson are actually pretty good. I mentioned them earlier. Katie Taylor, Amanda Serrano 2. Mario Barrios defending his title against Abel Ramos. Bruce Carrington, a bright prospect. But all the attention so far with the general public is going to be on Paul versus Tyson. And that's because, as Jim Lampley said, they're the 2 most recognizable names to the casuals in the U.S. And also because the powers that be in big time boxing, I feel, has done such a poor job of marketing the sport. And really, in the United States at least, boxing has become a niche sport. Why is that? Here's why. Every boxing event is now on platforms where you have to pay a fee. and that has resulted in a much smaller universe of fans. Meanwhile, Jake Paul has managed to fill the void that was voluntarily left by big-time boxing, and because of that, Mike Tyson remains relevant 20 years after his retirement. And here's something to think about. In January 1988, Mike Tyson defended his 3 heavyweight titles against Larry Holmes, who, at age 38, was thought to be long past his prime. And Tyson, as expected, crushed Holmes in 4 rounds. When Tyson steps into the ring against Jake Paul, he will be 20 years older than Holmes was in 1988. Something to think about. As for how I see this fight, the stats suggest that this will not be the firefight that everybody hopes it will be. Both men have below average work rate, and Paul is heavily dependent on his jab. Historically, Tyson has been a very accurate puncher. Even in the Roy Jones exhibition, he was very accurate. But does he still have the necessary delivery system at 58 years old to land the knockout punch that he needs to win, especially since they'll be wearing gloves with additional padding, and they're 2-minute rounds. He has less time to do it. So does he have the stamina to get through 8 2-minute rounds? I guess we'll find out. And as far as the result, I'm predicting that the audience will be left extremely dissatisfied. I agree with Jim Lampley there as well. Given the big top atmosphere surrounding this event, I wouldn't be surprised if we end up getting an inconclusive ending. Perhaps Tyson will suffer an injury that will cause the fight to be stopped, or he might get so frustrated that he'll get himself disqualified. This formula actually resulted in Floyd Mayweather fighting John Gotti III for a second time in an exhibition, and they got to dip into the till another time. So that's a possible ending here in this fight. Why not have an ending that results in Paul versus Tyson 2? But if this is a straight up fight and not a business transaction, I see Paul boxing his way to a points win. But really, I think we're going to end up getting the weird stuff.
Yeah, and on that, we will come back, and it is Smitty-logue time to close things out right after this.
I got 2 options. Option 1, I can accept defeat. Option 2, I can get up. I can get tougher. I can get faster. I can get stronger. And then I go get mine. I made my choice. Have you made yours?
I want to thank Lee Groves, Tommy Yankello, Regis Prograis, and Jim Lampley. Here's my 15th and final words on Tyson versus Paul. Whenever I hear that something is going to be great for the sport of boxing, I'm automatically skeptical. I've been hearing this stuff for years and years. But this time, with this event, it's insane and inane, in my opinion. A 58-year-old former heavyweight champion who hasn't fought professionally since 2005, facing a 27-year-old athletic guy that originated from YouTube and has only beaten the likes of a retired diminutive NBA player, over-the-hill MMA fighters, and some extremely limited boxers, and lost to the only legitimate current-day fighter he's faced in Tommy Fury, although Fury pretty limited himself. But this is where we're at. Now, how did we get here? I used to say way back in the day on my radio show, Smitty Sports Talk, that whatever is going on in society permeates into sports. And it's happened again. There seems to be this extremely insatiable, barbaric appetite out there, mostly fueled on social media by young white males, that has really landed in boxing and so-called combat sports. There's MMA and extreme versions of MMA, backyard boxing, bare knuckle boxing, slap fighting, and other sideshow fighting that people actually are paying to see. And that's not even to mention all the non-sanctioned fighting garbage seen all over social media that actually seem to attract viral status. Why is this over macho BS so prevalent? Well, I think that's another story for another type of show, a more political type of show. Then it would actually speak to who won the presidential election last week. But I believe we all need a big break from politics. I damn sure do. People seem, though, to crave more violence, less guardrails, and fewer restrictions and fewer rules. But you don't see this kind of thing going on in the mainstream sports, the NFL, Major League Baseball, the NBA, or the NHL, or even in auto racing, where those sports have actually gone to more and more safety regulation and rules. This is where boxing has got it all wrong, because more than any other sport, as I've always been saying, you don't play boxing. Mike Tyson used to be a destructive force. That ended in the mid-90s. He's pushing 60. And because he can be made to look so destructive cosmetically with old footage of him and new 9-second sped-up training footage, well, shame on the public who has bought into that BS. I'm not at all against exhibitions. By the way, Tyson was going to have a world tour, and he actually had an exhibition fight in 2006 in Youngstown, Ohio. And by the way, the announce team consisted of Ray Boom Boom Mancini, the late, great Colonel Bob Sheridan, and yours truly, me. I'm all for remembering the greats and appreciating their talents. I host Boxing's only weekly TV interview show for the past 20 years in this corner. And of course, I'm lucky enough to be the host of the International Boxing Hall of Fame in Canastota, New York, every June. Nobody more than I respects and appreciates and even showcases the legends. In fact, that's why, really, I created the in-ring segments on my TV show and have been lucky enough to get inside the squared circle with over 60 former world champions, included in that Mike Tyson. So I'm all in on exhibitions and fun sparring sessions for charity or whatever, but not this. Mike Tyson, while he can be made to look like this chiseled 58-year-old Godzilla, his organs underneath that exterior are those of a nearly 60-year-old dude with a ton of arthritis and scar tissue, and we won't even go into the potential damage to his brain. Now, I want to remember a different type of Tyson and a real, authentic boxing. As for Jake Paul, he can do whatever he chooses, and frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn. He's got his audience, and more power to him for what he's done, with that. By the way, I'd love to be proven wrong tonight and have Mike summon up his devastating prowess of the 80s and knock Paul out. But that is highly improbable. And more likely his chances, if this is a real fight, are likely to be that of the title of one of my favorite movies of all time, Less Than Zero. More likely the outcome will not be so pleasant for Tyson and for boxing purists, or something bizarre and very disappointing and very dissatisfying is more likely to be the case. This farcical fight will not in any way promote and better the sport of boxing. I would love to think of this as just a one-off, but we've already seen way too many of these pugilistic, carnivalesque sideshows. So the only thing I can really hope, using one of my favorite quotes of all time, is that this too shall pass. So long, everybody.